Hello, everyone. So, for this virtual coffee, we have here with me Joelle Edwards-Tonks, that is the Chief Commercial and Operating Officer of SunLife Mauritius. Thank you so much, Joelle, for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, Tiago. It's a pleasure to be here today with you.
Awesome. Before we start with this virtual coffee, if you want to give a quick intro of yourself and SunLife too.
Sure, yeah. Well, I've been in the hospitality industry for 26 years now, working for some big international groups. I worked for Four Seasons. I worked for Shangri-La. I worked for Oetker Collection. I was based in Paris for a long time previous to joining SunLife, who I joined 6 years ago. I'm now based in Mauritius, in the Indian Ocean. Lucky me. And Here with SunLife, we have five luxury resorts, and we also run two golf courses. One of them is the very famous Île, which is a beautiful golf course on its own island. And Yeah, welcome guests from all over the world. Our main focus markets are in Europe, but we do also have a lot of guests from South Africa, from the Middle East, and from Eastern Europe as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for the intro. One of the things that made me reach out actually was that we at HiJiffy, we noticed that earlier this year, SunLife received two very important awards at the CIEL Innovation Awards.
Hmm.
And you got a recognition for innovation across, and I'm reading it right now, guests and employees' experiences. And
Yeah.
we were reading in SunLife's LinkedIn post that it mentioned that both awarded projects share basically the same vision, creating meaningful human-centered experiences for your guests and staff. And I would like to know if you can share some insights on how do you balance, and it's been a very big topic around this
Yeah.
with all the AI, and how do you balance like the high touch human service with digital communication to drive the guest engagement, drive revenue, and drive all more guest satisfaction too.
Yeah, it's a great question. As you said, a very hot topic at the moment. And I think balancing is really the key word that you use there, because it is about balancing that high touch service with the digital communication. And they're certainly not opposing each other today. I think that digital allows you to be very present before arrival, during the stay, post departure, and then the magic, if you like, happens with our people, with our teams. Um, I think that the digital aspect really brings the convenience, the anticipation, and that personalization that we are all in the industry striving
Mhm.
for. And then the human touch complements that with the emotion, with the surprise, and the connection that you can have with your guests. So I suppose ultimately digital is there to enhance the human service. It's not there to replace it. And I think there's a real opportunity today in our industry to, if you get that right,
Mhm.
you're going to free up your teams to really be able to focus on what matters and to be on the floor. I think, I've had these discussions with my teams a lot, saying, I think there was a bit of confusion at the beginning when all these digital tools came out, where everyone thought, great, we're going to digitalize the guest experience, and, very, no touch experience, which is absolutely not what we want to do. For me, the digital is there to um, support the teams, free them up. It's all going on in the background, if you like, making them more efficient, more productive as well, and giving them that extra time to spend with the guest, and bring that human touch to the guest experience.
Yeah, I normally say that digitalizing the guest experience is really to take out the eyes and the face of people that work in operations of hotels from the laptop or the computer, and being able to have eye contact direct with the guests and have time with the guests instead of having to do repetitive tasks. And it's a responsibility that all the hotel tech ecosystem has as a whole, is really
Yeah.
making people that work at front desk not having to be there looking at the laptop for a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as much as we can provide that to our teams, then I think the guests will benefit from that direct contact that they will have with the staff on the ground.
Sure. And I was curious to know that is, what kind of guest communication right now actually drives action in a resort setting, for example, inspiration, convenience, or timing? What kind of guest communication works best right now?
Um, I think it's probably a combination of all three.
Hmm.
Um, I think the you mentioned inspiration. I think that's the part that sparks the desire for the guest. So that would obviously be through a lot of our digital tools that we use, be it the website, social media, and then the convenience is removing the barriers, I guess. So, making it easy to book, for example, that's the convenient part. But it's really then the timing that converts. I
Hmm.
believe that guests in resorts, because I'm dealing with resorts now. Specifically, they're in a very specific mindset when they're on holiday in a resort. They're very open minded, they're relaxed. So I suppose that sort of the inspiration, the convenience, the timing have to happen at the right moment. You have to give them the right message, which will increase conversion, and through the right channels. So it's how you're reaching out to them, and what you're saying. I think people, they don't want to have things pushed upon them. Today, they prefer sort of more suggestive communication that will then inspire them, and then convert them, hopefully to maybe that little extra spend when they're on site. But it's definitely a combination of the three. So I'm not saying that we're getting it right today, but it's something I think that we should be definitely striving for.
Yeah. You were talking about right now one topic that is extra spends, and extra spends in terms of upselling is something that really happens more, I would say, in hotels that have a longer stay, and that's one of your cases. And to be
Yeah.
honest, on the cases of SunLife and other hoteliers with whom I talk to have longer stay, one of
Mm,
the other challenges that I see is around the communication and the touch points within that long stay.
yeah.
And my question for you is, how do you approach personalization here to feel like it's tailored for them, but at the same time, it's on a long stay, and making sure that you have those touch points during the long stay that, who knows,
Yeah.
can bring that extra spends or something else, just in terms of guest experience improvements or reduction of repetitive tasks that the operations of the hotel may have during that
Yeah.
longer stay with the guests.
Yeah. I think obviously, yeah, longer stays are a great opportunity, aren't they? You've got a captive audience for 8 or 9, if not longer, nights in your resort. Um, the big one is preferences. Obviously, being able to observe those guests over that period of time, noticing their, preferences. And then, of course, the key thing is to get those into a profile, so that can prompt then suggestions, like I mentioned earlier, during their stay, and also personalizing future stays. I think true personalization is adapting in real time as well. It's not so that the guest doesn't feel that whatever service they're getting is sort of pre-programmed. So if you can really achieve that art of really observing and adapting a guest experience based on real time observation, then you've I think you've really you've really hit the nail on the head. And because at the end of the day, guests, they just want to feel understood. I think they want to feel that somebody's, understood them and noticed what they like, what they don't like. And when we can achieve that, then that's really, pushing the guest experience to its best, I think.
Yeah. At the same time, the balance between here being very tailored to that specific guests and
Yeah.
adding on top of that being scalable, right? For an
Yeah.
organization like SunLife, because I would say, I don't know, but I would say that in SunLife it's impossible to have a staff member
Yeah.
always with a guest, right? So
Yeah.
how do you see that on in terms of scalability? What is it, something that worries you or not that much?
Um, I think we're very lucky in Mauritius to have teams who, are wonderful and
Mhm.
very heartfelt and great attention to detail. They remember guests' names from guests who came 5 years ago, or so, which is fantastic. But definitely getting that, then, as we always say, that's great as long as the staff member is still there. When the day they walk out the door as the, lucky ones to a lovely retirement, all of that
Yeah,
information has just walked out the door with them. So
true.
how do we make sure that we, we retain that information, and that has to be obviously through the tools and the systems that we have. So there is a necessity for a lot of training, and standard operating procedures to make sure that we're capturing that information and not just keeping it in our heads, but translating that into systems that then anybody can use. And I think that's one of the messages that I've given the teams even quite recently was, anybody should be able to walk into a guest's reservation or a guest profile and understand everything about the booking and everything about the guest. So, every tiny little piece of information that we have, it needs to go in that profile to be able to then, give that personalized service.
Yeah, that's even more important when the percentage of repeating guests is so high.
Yeah,
I do talk with a
yeah,
lot of hoteliers that have a very big, and actually, there is a correlation between hotels that have a very big percentage of repeating guests and islands. Because most of the hoteliers that I know, I
yeah,
don't know why, but there's a correlation. Most hoteliers that I know that have a high repeating guests or in islands. And that's where it's even more important to know everything about your guests, because if they keep up coming, their
yes.
expectation is even higher that you already
Is
know
even
him.
higher. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. We have a
Mm,
lot of repeat guests in Mauritius, and we do have a lot of repeat guests in our resorts, definitely.
amazing. Thank you so much for joining this virtual coffee. I hope you
Thank
enjoyed.
you. I did. That was great to have a chat, Tiago. It was great to see you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for the
Thank you.
invitation.